Good morning and welcome to Northern Soul Journeys in the Long Hill Homestead. It's been a bit of time since we've taken you on a tour of the garden, but we're here to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's go. You can hear a little bit of background noise. That's because the dogs are having their breakfast. So we're going to be doing this video while they're having their breakfast. So if you hear any barking, that's what's going on. We're going to start here with the cabbage and beetroot bed, which is by far the worst of the ugly. You can see all of the leaves look kind of like Swiss cheese, and that is due to a white fly maggot that comes in with the air and they land on the cabbage leaves and they just munch away. To be honest, we knew about this as a problem. We knew this could be a problem, and we did not cover the plants like many people do. So we've learned our lesson this year, and we know we're going to need to do something different next year. If you come and look on the underside of the plant, you can see the maggots just munching away. That being said, there are some heads of cabbage that are growing nicely. We don't know if we're going to cut into them and it will just be filled with these white fly maggots, but we'll see. We're taking it as a learning experience. We're not going to kick ourselves over this too much, and just know that next year we need to plant differently. In the center of this row, we do have beetroot growing, which is doing fine, and you can see that they really attack the cabbage plants because the beetroots have no bite marks on them. They look fine. One change that we might make for next year is that we might keep all the cabbage family plants in the same bed and grow fewer of them until we feel like we're doing a good job and keeping them safe from these maggots. Well, let's move on to the Brussels sprouts. This is the Brussels sprout bed with carrots on the side. Brussels sprouts are part of the cabbage family, so you can see they've been eaten up quite a bit as well. This one in particular looks very sad. But let's take a brief pause from these Brussels sprouts and look at the carrots. If you look on this side here, there's quite a lot of carrots, hello Tusker, growing. But on the side furthest away from me, there aren't so many carrots growing. And this was most likely due to the fact that the seeds were put into the soil and we didn't really water them too much. And the first germination period for carrots, they need a lot of moisture, which unfortunately they did not get. I will also say that this type of carrot, which was the F1 hybrid carrot that we had bought, did not do as well as another type of carrot that we had. So that is also something to think about for us, that this one didn't do as well in this area. Or maybe it needs more tending. We're just learning as we go, honestly. Moving on to the kale. From all the cabbage plants that we're growing, the kale is doing the best against these little maggots. And we've been harvesting this for weeks now. And yeah, they look great. They're huge, they're healthy, and they've been making really good additions to our meals. We're really happy about that. On the side we have carrots growing. This is a different type of carrot. And let's just look and see which one this is. Chanterelle, I believe, is this carrot. They're doing quite well, and we've had to go through and thin them out, and that just helps allow the carrots to grow much larger. So once they start sprouting, we'll go through, or when they started sprouting, we went through and started to thin out some carrots to provide more room. So if you come here and look, there's quite a lot of carrots here, and particularly right here we have two growing side by side. So we just go through and pull this little bitty baby one out, and that just gives the bigger one more room to grow. So it's important to do this to make sure you can get nice big carrots. This is the onion bed. This year we did onion sets, if you remember, and next year I would like to do them from seed. We have red and white onions in this bed together, And while the stem stalks are looking a little bit sad, I think they're growing well underneath. I would hope so. We've actually had record rainfall this year, and I don't know if all that rain has pushed them down or what, but I just hope that they're looking nice underneath the ground. This is the leek bed, and we have two different types of leeks growing in here. If you remember, we have the Chinook leek on the left here, and on the far side we have the Northern Lights leek. And if you come close and have a look at the leaves or the plant of the Northern Lights leek, it's a beautiful purple color. I will say that the Chinook is looking a little bit stronger than the Northern Lights leek, although I think the Northern Lights is a little bit of a smaller leek on the whole. We don't actually eat that much leek in our house on a normal basis, but I just got excited to plant, of course, and planted as much as I could. But I think we'll be able to store this well and cook it into soups that we'll be able to store for the winter. So that was one of the reasons why I thought having this much leek was okay. As we've said, this is such a learning process for us. This is the first year we've had these raised beds. We've had potato fields before, we've had pea plants and some strawberries, but this is the first year we're really investing a lot of time and a lot of money into these raised beds here. So we're just making it up as we go along and learning from our mistakes mostly. On this end of the bed we have peas. There's actually two varieties of peas here, but I couldn't tell you which one is which. So that was definitely a mistake I made. Another mistake that I made was that the truss that I made for them to climb, I put in too late, and I didn't do a good job doing it because I was in a rush doing it. So when I redo this next year, I would like to have something nice and stable for them to climb. That won't sag and fall in the middle. I also did it too late. I was putting it off and putting it off, so that was also a mistake. That being said, they're still growing really nicely here. Got really nice peas that are just so good, so tasty. In the rest of the bed here, we have broccoli growing, and they're actually starting to come up in the center, which is so exciting. And these are also part of the cabbage family. So you can see they're getting chewed on all over the place. Not so nice. In the center here, we put more carrots. We kind of tried to fill in all the space. This is another thing we're not sure if we've made the right decision or not. We wanted to utilize as much space as we could, but we're not sure if everything is too tight. The thing about cabbage family plants is they're huge and they take up so much space. You don't think about it when you're putting it in the ground. Oh, it's only this big. How big could it get? Oh, it gets really big. So that is something to consider when we're planting these things. That being said, the carrot plants themselves seem really happy. We'll see how the carrots themselves look when we actually harvest them. If they're really big or if they're really not so nice looking. Yeah. That's it for the garden bed, but we have a few different areas where we're growing things. Here we have beans growing. This year I planted a bush variety, but next year I would like to have a pole variety, which will grow taller and give out a harvest throughout the season rather than just in one go. Now something's happened here and I'm actually not sure why, so if you've had this experience, please share in the comments. But these leaves are quite yellow. I don't know why they're not green as they should be. And the beans themselves are also kind of yellow. So I'm not sure why. They have a lot of sun, they have a lot of water. Maybe they have too much water. Maybe they're not well fertilized. I actually have no idea. I do have some others in a different area that did not get as much sun and are much greener. Let's have a quick look at those. So along here I planted a bunch of bean plants as well, and you can see they just look healthier, they look happier. Maybe it's the soil. I'm really not sure. There's deeper soil here, that's for sure, but it gets a lot less sun on this spot. So I'm not sure. But one thing I do know is that next year, like I said, I would like to plant a pole variety instead of a bush variety so we can get them taller. Something I want to mention is that the garden looks very beautiful now, and that's a huge thank you to my mother-in-law, Jeremias's mother, who spent an entire day here weeding our garden for us. That was much appreciated, and so it looks really lovely. And Jeremias mowed the lawn here, so I just want you to know it doesn't always look this gorgeous here. Now we're in the herb garden, which until recently was a jungle, but now you can actually see what's growing here. Some stuff did really well, some stuff died, but one thing that did really well, as you can see behind me, is the dill. And we have harvested some of it. We're trying to dry the herbs that we're growing in our garden. So when things have grown nicely, I've been clipping it, tying it together, and hanging it inside a cupboard so it can dry and be saved for the season. Hi, Tusker. He really likes the herb garden. Hi. We still actually have some empty space here, so next year we'll either expand on those herbs or maybe add another one to it. On this far side here, we have two different types of mint. We have thyme, we have rosemary, which I'm hoping in the future will grow nice and big. Two different types there. We have chives, which we moved from a different part of the garden this year, and they are always growing really well. We have basil, which we have 3 different types of basil, but one of them unfortunately did die, which was that beautiful red basil. On this side, we have dill, we have parsley, and we have oregano growing in the back. The parsley did super well, and I'm really proud because I grew all of this from seed, as did the dill. Rosemary is a perennial, so we're hoping that it's going to come back next year. One perennial plant that we bought that did really badly is the lavender, which I was so sad about because it was so beautiful. You can see it doesn't look so happy, but if we look in the middle, you see fresh plants growing. Is it going to survive the winter? Honestly, no idea, but let's hope that it does. So let's look at a success and a failure right next to each other. Here is our tower potato planter. This one has 1 bag of soil distributed throughout the layers, and it's exploding. The plants are healthy, they're happy. And here we tried doing just straw. Not so good. So that was something that we learned, that you need to have something for the plants to grow in. Fresh straw is just not going to cut it. The success of this tower is really inspiring. We'll see what the harvest itself looks like, but if it goes well, it might be a way for us to plant potatoes in the future. This is the big potato field. We have been using for the past 2 years the root stout method, where you use organic material to create a decomposition layer underneath. And over time, it's supposed to create a very fertile soil. This is year 2. It's doing really well. However, if you look across the field, you can see inconsistencies. Here, the potatoes are actually really small, the plants, whereas, just a meter away, it's doing really well. So that's something for us to consider in the future. Maybe next year we'll decide to till the field and do it the regular way. Something else that we might consider with this field is not only using it for potatoes. It's a very big field, and while we do eat a lot of potatoes, we eat other things as well, so maybe we want to balance that out with this field. Now for the final stop, and probably my favorite place in the whole garden, what we refer to as the jungle. In here we have 2 varieties of tomatoes growing. We have a cherry tomato that I planted quite early on. I started from seeds, and I wish I had done the same with the other tomatoes, but it was kind of a last minute thought. The younger tomatoes, which are a large variety, are growing on this side of the greenhouse, and it's actually very obvious the height difference, and I think it has to do with how much sunlight they're getting. So that is something for us to consider when planting here next season. Along here and along this side are the cherry tomatoes, which are doing really well. It's the first time I've ever grown tomatoes, so I don't know if I'm doing a good job or a bad job. If you come in here, you can see one plant is very, very tall and beautiful right here. So there's something that I did right with this plant. I'm not sure what. I couldn't tell you. We'll see, of course, how much fruit I get, because that's another major thing to consider. We also have chilies growing here, and these are even starting to become ripe. They're on their way. We have loads of chilies growing on these plants. And of course, the pumpkin. The pumpkins are just out of control, honestly, but there's fruit all over the place, which is so exciting, and they are happy and healthy. Next year, we are definitely not going to have these in the same place as the tomatoes. I feel that pumpkins will need a greenhouse in this climate just because of how quickly we get frost and how late the frost lasts. However, they're going to need their own space because they're crazy. They just keep growing. I keep thinking it's done, and then it just comes further and further. So I probably will need to prune them back a little bit. I'm a little apprehensive to do so yet because I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I'm going to need to give a little bit more space to the tomatoes. And one last thing about our tomatoes, in the center you can actually see the bags of soil, which I just used as planters. I grew way too many tomato plants this year. I got a little seed happy, and so I had too many plants and not enough space. So at the last minute, I just shoved 4 in the center, and I'm going to have to hoist them up to the ceiling, let them climb up towards the ceiling. What I am being really careful with the ones in the middle especially is I am taking away any suckers so that the plant grows further, more vertically, rather than becoming more bushy. That way it doesn't impede on the space of the plants on either side. So that is something that I'm being careful of with these in the center. But this greenhouse has made me so happy just because I feel like I've been successful in here. And it's a nice place to come in and feel like I'm in a little jungle. All right, last stop on the tour is to introduce you all to one of the new baby chicks. We had 7 eggs that we decided to let get fertilized and keep. And this is one of the new little hatchlings. So cute. Hi. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.